Do UFOs exist?
Uh, no, not in Vancouver, at least. That was a ski hill. I learned the next morning, which, by the way, the next morning, I'm not the most warm and fuzzy kind of guy, as you've probably picked up by now. I
What?
know, you're shocked. But it was, I got upgraded to a corner room that overlooked the mountains. And from the east, you had like a yellow and orange of the sunrise coming up over the snow-capped mountains of Vancouver, and then the ski hill off in the distance with a little bit of fog and mist over the city. And it was a really cool scene. So I had a moment of humanity. I'm pretty set for the year. I think I'm good until next January, but but I had a crazy idea just now. Wouldn't it be great if I was tracking these office hours topics so that I didn't have to like think of stuff and I could maybe build a backlog of things that I wanted to do and then also share some of my project methodology to show how you don't have to run your consultancy on email inboxes and Slack. Um, Maybe I'll do that. I'll start with that as a quick and dirty Kanban introduction, and then mostly for the purposes of tracking this. But then as you have ideas of things you want to talk about in the future, I'll just throw it in the backlog and then we'll have a perpetual list of stuff to talk about. I was wondering how I was going to do that. Big thumbs up from Aaron, it looks like. We like that idea. So let's dive in with that, unless there are any questions first. No? All right. In today's episode, session, whatever, of the Salesforce Revenue Cloud office hours, I'm going to continue on what we did last week. Last week, we started talking about the architecture of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Today, I'm actually going to build it. It's funny, we've done a lot of these, and so far, I haven't really built anything in the system. And I've mostly talked conceptually, showed some flow charts and that sort of a thing. But I think that's important because too often, as technologists, we get all hung up on the cool stuff we can do in Salesforce. And I could build it, I could do this, I can make this field and this, that, and the other thing. But we don't often take time to step back and think about why we're doing this, or what should the structure be, or how do I conceptualize this in a way that's relevant for the way my business does business, or anything like that. Let me share my screen here, and I'll show you some of how I run projects. I'm going to treat office hours like a project. It's kind of a project. And we'll begin with the Kanban. I'm not going to bore you with the details of Agile methodology or Kanban or anything like this, but this is how I run my business. My clients and I collaborate on a Kanban board. It's very basic, as you can see. This is a template that I've created so that I have a starting point because most projects contain the same thing. I've got a backlog. Every one of these columns has a README file at the top, or a README card where I define the purpose of the column. When I create a new project, then I can assign the cards to the client and say, my expectation for the first week or prior to kickoff is that you have read all the README cards. And once you're done with them, you move them to the done column. And then there's a record that shows, okay, they did their homework. They've also used the board. And as I go and get more elaborate with this, I'll add more resources. Maybe I add an SOP document to each of these cards or whatever. A lot of this is not going to be relevant for us on this call, but I'm using this as a starting point because it's got some basic stuff in place already. Oh, by the way, I'm using the free version of Trello. So far, I've been in business for a year and I have yet to spend any money on Trello or Jira or any other Agile methodology application. I like it that way because I'm in startup mode. Technically speaking, I'm supposed to have an upgraded license in order to create templates of projects, but I thought copying a board that is kind of like a template is basically the same thing. So I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to call this Salesforce Revenue Cloud Office Hours. It's in the workspace here. I'm going to keep the cards. I'm going to keep the template cards and create. It's copying all that stuff. Here we go. We got a new project. I've already read the README stuff, so I don't really need to worry about any of these. But as I get things done, I move them into the done column. Look at how fast I am at reading. Wow, I went to school. This is great. I will often, when I have a new project, I'll create this onboarding checklist for the client. So this is actually this card I have for the opportunity itself. So before I even start working with the client on a project, I'm working with them on this project. And then together, they know where we are in the sales process, what are the next steps. Right here, I have our expectations are aligned. They see what's coming down. Once that's done, great, I won the deal, move that over. The cards will move their way through the process as we go. But I also have project setup. This is stuff that I do at the beginning of the project. Creating the board, I need to create things in QuickTime, create a RAID log, this, that, and the other thing. I'm starting to realize my RAID log is kind of irrelevant though, because if it's an issue, just put it on the board. I don't need another spreadsheet to track this stuff. Same thing here. I'll get that over here. Project setup for the client. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to get me a sandbox. I need you to get me licenses and access to these various systems. Cool. I don't need any more of that. That's good. Billing setup. All right. I need to get the billing contact and address, send them the W-9. Oh, isn't that cool? I've already pre-attached a signed W-9 for Garvens Consulting, so you don't have to ask me for it. It's right here on the card. And then I've got some starting points for sprints with a sprint demo checklist. Schedule it, write the script, practice it, deliver it, get feedback, etc. And we've got all of our different sprints. Cool. Trello's a simple tool. It's easy to use. It's good enough for now. As I get more sophisticated later, perhaps I'll build it out. And then at the end of the project, eventually I'll create checklists of things that I need to do to close it out, things that the client needs to do to close it out, which I have nothing yet. Part of this is customer satisfaction surveys so that I get app exchange whatevers. And that's pretty much it. Now, the nice thing about this is I see a whole bunch of stuff in the done column. Look at how productive I was. Hooray. I'm starting to quantify the things that I've done. Wonderful. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here and don't want to bore you too much with all of this, but you can dive down a whole rabbit hole with this. At first, I was very anti-agile because what I realized is most companies say they're agile, but really they're just fragile. That's their methodology. Anything goes wrong, the whole thing just falls apart in one big shit show. But that's not how we're going to run things here. I run a tight ship. I'll archive these in the list. At first, I didn't understand the purpose of the done column. I was like, I'm a checklist guy. I got a checklist. I cross things out. Things are done. They move off the list automatically. But there's a psychological momentum I find that I gain when I see the pile of done adding up. All this stuff was on the left side. Now it's all on the right side, which means I've been a productive and effective human being, and I feel good about myself. And then every now and then we'll just archive the whole list. All right. Today, I'm going to start adding to the backlog. We're going to create the peanut butter and jelly sandwich bundle. That's the first one. And then we're maybe create a price rule or whatever. We can start adding things as you have ideas. I'll start populating with other ideas as we go. And then maybe for each week, I'll add things to the to-do or to-do this month, whatever this means to you. And right now, we're going to start doing this. The other thing that I really like is that, at least with Trello, other things do the same thing, is as I'm changing my statuses and keeping track of stuff, I'm also seeing an activity log down here, and I can attach all sorts of other things. But we'll keep running the board. I'll run this session every week, just like I run an actual project. We're going to build a backlog. We're going to have to-do items. I'm going to start connecting other related documents to the cards. Maybe at some point, I'll even make this board public so that you could just get all the links and stuff yourselves if I add things to cards. Anyway, let's get started. Here's a peanut butter and jelly product that I created last week. If you remember from our story, here's a quick recap. in last week's episode, this is what happened to our hero. We started a peanut butter and jelly sandwich restaurant and we sell PB&J sandwiches, but we wanted to start getting more accurate in terms of understanding the margin of each sandwich and what combinations I could sell together. And it'll help with demand planning so that I know how much peanut butter I need to order from my vendors and all this other stuff. It's all going to start here with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We might have had SKU proliferation before where we had just way too many products to keep track of. Now we're simplifying things and it's getting better. But this is where we're starting. I want to categorize these things because I also have in this sandbox, I have diesel generators. Not the most relevant for a peanut butter or jelly sandwich. So perhaps I want to pipe by product family or stuff. I can update all these different things. For now, I'm just going to create a handful of products so that we have products to sell and to put together in a bundle. Now, if you remember from last time, we talked about two high-level approaches to configuration in any CPQ tool. We have product-based configuration, where the different things that I sell are different product records in the system, and they may be different product records for different reasons. I went into that in the previous video, but it might be for tax reasons. Maybe peanut butter is taxed differently than jelly, and I need two different product records so that I can separate those things out. Or perhaps I just want a more granular view of the different pieces and parts. Maybe I'm a manufacturer and I really need to, for fulfillment purposes, have a better understanding of the specific products that are in place so that I can more accurately source my materials or fulfill my orders that come in and things like that. For ours, we're going to separate these out into individual ingredients. We're going to have crunchy peanut butter, creamy peanut butter, strawberry grape jelly, and then we're going to have white bread or wheat bread. We'll continue expanding and building out as we go, but we're going to start with those 6 core products. And then our product management team is going to get a brilliant idea, which you'll learn about very soon. And we're going to roll that out. Now, my peanut butter and jelly sandwich already created. Let's talk through some of the core fields that I'm concerned with when I create a new product. First, I need to make sure that every product has a name, just like every other object in Salesforce. Every record has a name, even if it's an auto-generated number. I have a product code. I could have a product family. It's active. I've created a price book entry. The price book entry is active as well. Down here, here's my price books. Got a $10 sandwich. We're in Brooklyn, so sue me. It's a $10 sandwich. And now we're going to go down the list. Product description, I got really clever with this. This is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And some other fields have already populated themselves. As you can see, I didn't populate those. Let's talk about the ones that already have some values and what they mean. The active checkbox is that standard checkbox that allows us to sell the product in the first place. And if you remember from the products, price books, price book entries video from a few weeks ago, we need the product, the price book, and the price book entry to be active to sell the product in CPQ. And in order to use CPQ at all, I must have price book entries for my products. If I don't, I cannot sell it in CPQ. Even if the price book entry is a 0 value, that's fine. Happens all the time. We might dynamically set our pricing based on a number of different factors, but I still have to have a price book entry, even if the price book entry is 0. There's a whole lot of bells and whistles here and a lot of levers that we can pull and knobs that we can twist and buttons we can push. But some of the core ones that I want to think about here are the active checkbox, product code, product name. On the right-hand side, we've got our asset conversion set as 1 per quote line. Our quantity editable is true. Our default quantity is 1. Let's talk about these real quick. Asset conversion gets into this idea of downstream, when I contract this in CPQ and I generate assets for this one-time product, will I generate, in the case that I sell 10 sandwiches, will I generate 1 asset record with a quantity of 10 or 10 asset records with a quantity of 1? That's another one of those, it depends, it's debatable. scenarios. But if I was selling bricks, for example, and I don't need to have asset conversion, anything other than one per line. Let's edit the product record to see what the values will be. One per line is sufficient if I'm selling bricks. I need to know that Juanis bought 1,000 bricks. I'm not tracking a serial number on every single brick. However, if I'm the Federal Reserve and I'm purchasing from the Federal Reserve and I just bought 10 gold bricks, maybe each one of those has a serial number engraved on it. I don't know if any of that's true, especially because you can melt gold and get rid of the serial number. So maybe this is a terrible example, but let's use a computer instead. Computers have serial numbers on them, and that's how we can know that this specific machine that I have sitting in front of me broke. That's why I can log a case against that particular asset with that particular serial number. So in that case, I would want one per unit. Generally speaking, if you're serializing things or you need to know for each one of these things that the customer owns, I need to know which specific thing they have, then I would do one per unit. If it's a more general thing, pounds of gravel, bricks, tires, whatever, then one per quote line is probably sufficient. In our case, for the simplicity of this implementation, we're going to use one per quote line. Quantity editable is set to true. This means that when I'm in that shopping cart screen, the quote line editor screen, can I change the quantity? The default quantity is where are we starting? By default, I want to start with one sandwich. If I want more than one sandwich, I can change that, no big deal. But I'm going to start with one. Some products you might want to start with a higher quantity. As I scroll down, I've got more fields, I've got descriptions, configuration type and event. This is going to become relevant as we start to build out our bundle. I'll explain more about this later. The pricing method is set to list. We have several pricing methods available. We're not going to get into them all on this call, but list pricing is what we tend to think about at the most basic level of pricing. It's $3 per water bottle. I'm buying 10 water bottles, and the total is $30. Very simple. That's the pricing method that we're going to use here. And I can make additional choices. Can the user decide whether the pricing method is editable? Generally, that seems like a bad idea to me. I don't know why I would want that, but you never know. Price editable, is the cost editable? So if I'm tracking margins, can the user themselves play with the price and the cost and all this? Again, I tend to be a despot when I implement software. You will not do anything I don't allow you to do in the system, but that's just me. Other companies are more, do whatever you want. And then later they go, what did you do? We want to avoid both of those scenarios. Scrolling down further, we get to the subscriptions section. These are all standard out-of-the-box sections on the page layout for the CPQ page layout, which, by the way, you'll have to add. You'll have to change. It's installed, but you'll have to assign it to the profile in order to use the page layout. The subscriptions section helps us understand better how this product behaves from an asset and subscription perspective. In other words, is this a one-time product or is this a recurring product? And if it's a recurring product, is it renewable? If it's a recurring product, is it based on a fixed price or is it based on a percentage of the total of something else? All of those questions are starting to get answered here in the subscription section. After that active checkbox, that pesky little standard field that Salesforce has, I would argue that the subscription pricing field on the product is probably the single most important field after the active checkbox. Because if it's not active, I can never sell it at all. I have to have it an active product in order to sell it in the first place. However, is this a one-time or a recurring product is a really big deal with a lot of downstream effects. In this case, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I would really hope you're not going to try to sell this multiple times. So we're going to say it's a one-time product. It is not a subscription. Although our product management team, if you remember from earlier, they've got some wild ideas about how we can generate recurring revenue in our peanut butter and jelly sandwich business. The way to think about the subscription pricing field, if the field has a null value, we are not using subscription pricing. If it has a value, fixed price or percent of total, we are using subscription pricing. It is a recurring thing. It is a subscription. Asset, subscriptions. Any questions on that? Okay. The subscription pricing field is present on the product. It's present on the quote line, and it might be present in a couple of other areas. I'd have to take a look, but it passes this information downstream. That's important because we might change our mind later and start selling a product, maybe not a sandwich, but we might start with a one-time product, say an implementation. And then we decide in the future, we're going to do our implementations on a subscription basis, and it's just going to be month over month as a recurring subscription. Maybe we do that. I don't know. Do whatever you want. It's your business. The subscription term defines for subscription products how long the subscription will last. We can get into subscription settings and stuff in another call. But again, we're going to keep this very simple. We got a simple sandwich with a few basic ingredients, and that's about it. Down here in upgrades, we got some other stuff to think about. Renewal products. We'll worry about that later when we talk about contracts and subscriptions. But for now, those are the key fields. Any questions? Okay. Silence is acceptance. We're moving on. To save myself some time, though, I want to clone this peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to create these pesky price book entries, or if I could maybe get a starting point and create the price book entry without having to actually go create the record or whatever? We could do that. Or if I create some of this extra stuff here that we're going to talk about later, wouldn't it be great if I could clone those as well in one fell swoop? Well, you can. There's a function in CPQ to clone. That's a standard clone this record. And there's a clone with related button that's not currently in this page layout. Why, I don't know, because the product management team apparently didn't think about this. And then when I move these off the page layout, you have to move all of the freaking buttons one after another off the page layout. And I wish that Salesforce would create a button that says remove all quick actions from the page layout so that I can just add the 3 that I actually want. But no, I have to remove the 30 that I don't want, which we're going to do right now, so I don't have to worry about it again. From the object, I'm going to go to the page layouts. And from here, we're going to see 2 page layouts. This is a standard page layout that comes with Salesforce out of the box. And this is the CPQ product layout, the one that we're going to change, the one that is currently assigned to my user profile. I'm going to override these here. And these are all of the buttons that I really don't give a shit about, but I need to remove them from my page layout because they annoy me. I'm very particular with things, as I mentioned earlier. I'm a vicious totalitarian despot when it comes to implementing software. Isn't this exciting? Oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat right now. Quite literally, because I like to sit on the edge of the seat, but also it's a metaphorical thing.
This is why they pay us the big bucks, Sean.
Absolutely. I mean, do you know anyone else who could do this? I mean, look at this shit. I'm good. All right, I'm going to add, remember, this is a lightning action. This is not a button. This is a lightning action, and I have 2 here. This one is for Salesforce Classic. So if you're still in Salesforce Classic, why? If your answer is because it works faster than lightning, I understand. But really, we should be using the lightning version because lightning is so great. So great, in fact, that the setup is still in Classic with a lightning wrapper. Hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble with the actual big Salesforce. All right. Now that we've got the actual buttons that I want, I'll refresh my page, and there they are. Now I'm going to clone with related. I'll show you what this functionality does. It's not the best example right now because the only related record I have is a price book entry, but this will give you a sense of what it's going to do. And also, again, don't ask me why. Nobody wanted my opinion when they built this product. For some reason, we don't see the price book entries here. Just know that behind the scenes, this function is doing a deep clone of the record, which will clone the record and its children. I clone, the deep clone happens, and just like that, we've cloned the record and any of its related records, including this one down here. But I don't want $10 for what's going to be peanut butter. So let's start here by editing the product that I just cloned. This is going to be crunchy peanut butter. Product code, crunchy, and I'll go ahead and save that. Crunchy peanut butter is going to be maybe $1. It's an expensive place. And now that I have the same, I'm going to clone again. I'm going to clone from this one. I'll have all of my extra ingredients basically be another $1. I'll make some modifications to that later as well. Crunchy peanut butter. We'll clone again. Edit the product name. This is going to be creamy peanut butter. Oops. Save. I'm going to make my jelly. Again, these are all for $1. We see this still cloning my price book entry down here. It's all $1. We can adjust those a little bit later. A lot of times what I like to do is batch these sorts of tasks. I'll do the same thing over and over, and then I'll go back and I'll do the other thing that I need to change. It can simply speed up your development time. Here I'm going to have grape jelly. And then I need some bread. What would a sandwich be without bread? Something a toddler would love. Finally, we'll clone this to give ourselves some wheat bread. For those of you who are allergic to peanuts and gluten, don't worry. We have some use cases for you coming up in future episodes. Stay tuned. Okay. Let's take a look at what we got. Crunchy peanut butter, creamy peanut butter, diesel generator, whatever. It's an innovative business. Grape jelly, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, white bread, wheat bread, etc. But right now, remember, all of these are discrete products. They're separate. And if I wanted to sell them, I would have to add each individual thing. This is where a lot of companies start, and part of the value add of CPQ. Either they're going to have one product record for every single combination that exists, which we got to earlier, where if I had, say, 4 types of bread, 4 jellies, and 4 types of butter, I would have 64 possible combinations. I'd say I have 64 product records in the system, when really all I need are 12. So we end up with that SKU proliferation or product proliferation problem that so many companies have that often gets removed when we use some sort of configurable tool, because then the tool itself handles the variability and I don't have to handle it via discrete records. That gets complicated though, because sometimes you also have system integrations built around that initial concept of so many product records, and you have to start reconciling these processes and methodologies. Do we really need this many products? If we remove or reduce the number of these products, what does that do with our upstream and downstream systems? How does that affect the system integration? There's a lot of stuff to consider here. And so it's a more complicated thing than it seems like at first glance. You might just say, oh, get rid of the products you don't need. It's not always so simple, especially as you get to larger companies with more sophisticated enterprise architecture and all of this other stuff. But right now, we're just a small PB&J shop. Any questions so far on creating the products, cloning with related, price book entries, why I need them, any of that? I'll pause for a dramatic drink of water. By the way, pro tip, if you're teaching, have water, coffee, whatever on the table. Then when you ask a question, take a dramatic drink, because it gives people time to get off mute. It gives people time to think about a question, because it's a whole process. Do I have a question? Oh, I do have a question. Where the hell's the mute button? Where's my mouse? Why isn't my mouse working? My mouse should be working. Damn it. Okay, my mouse is working. There's the mute button. And now I have a question, but a lot of times you move along as an instructor and they're going, well, I guess I won't ask. So the water bottle, and then I'll also have an analog like watch or some sort of thing like that. And I'll watch 10 seconds tick by just so that I'm sure that I give plenty of time for people to come off mute, ask their question, etc. Since there are still no questions though, let's start talking about this bundle structure. If you remember from earlier, we created this on the whiteboard in the last episode. We talked about creating this actual architecture, what it's going to look like, the different layers of things where we have the specific ingredients like crunchy peanut butter and creamy peanut butter. But what we also have we also have the sandwich as a whole, which serves as a wrapper for the whole thing. But we also want to bucket these things as like items. We want the peanut butter to be with the peanut butter. We want the jelly to be with the jelly and the bread to be with the bread. That's what we're going to start to get into here when we build out the bundle structure for the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. To do this, we're going to go to the sandwich itself and talk through some of these related lists that we see on the product page layout. Pretty much everything that you see here is going to be a CPQ specific object. Everything from the block prices to the costs and price dimensions, options, all the way down through these upgrade sources. All this stuff is CPQ stuff. Price book entry is still a standard object though. Products, price books, price book entries, all standard. These active checkboxes you see, still standard, and so on. Where I like to start with the bundle structure is with the categories of products that exist within the bundle. In this case, we have 3 categories of products that we're selling. We have our bread, our peanut butter, and our jelly. Those in CPQ are called product features. The features / categories of stuff that we're selling. I'm going to create the features first, because then when I create the specific options that I have, the choices that I have for crunchy or creamy peanut butter, white bread or wheat bread, strawberry grape jelly, they have buckets to sit inside. The features are both a visual element and a functional element. And I'm going to talk through both of those as we go. Before I do that really quick, I want to create a test account so that I have something to work with as I move through CPQ. So then I can start to demo things as I go. It's not going to be anything fancy. I'm going to call this Acme Corporation. It's a prospect in the tech industry. What else do I care about? I don't really care about much of this stuff. Billing, let's see here. Oops. You might think to yourself, this is an awfully specific address. Where is it? 111 West Illinois Street is the original Salesforce office in Chicago. I've been to that building more as a Salesforce customer and partner than I have as a Salesforce employee, though I did actually work from there thrice during COVID. Now everything's in the brand new shiny Salesforce Tower, Chicago, which is pretty sweet. I've been in there too. All right, we've got Acme Corp. Who else is going to work there but Bugs Bunny? Let's add a contact for Bugs Bunny. Give them an email address. And now, fun fact, in case you didn't know it before, if I create an opportunity from a contact, it will automatically add the contact as an opportunity contact role on the opportunity created from the contact. Acme Corporation, PB, and J1. It's the first peanut butter and jelly sandwich they're going to buy. I'm going to close this next week. It take a while to decide what they want. We'll start with the prospecting, fill out a couple more fields. Not that it really matters. Lead source, I don't know, from the web, whatever. Doesn't really matter. As mentioned, Bugs has been added as a primary contact to the opportunity contact roles related list on the opportunity that I just created. We see these products. This is the way that we used to do it in this business. We used to add products and then we'd select our standard price book. And then from there, we would pick the individual lines that we wanted to sell. But now we have CPQ, so we can actually use the quote function to do this. But I don't see the quotes here, which means I need to edit the page layout. I don't remember if CPQ install. I think it installs an opportunity page layout. Does it? Aha, it does. Great. I'll change my page layout assignment then. I feel like for these moments, I need to play either the Jeopardy song or the Hustle. Or the Girl from Ipanema. That would be another good one. Now it's assigning that to my various profiles. You're not going to be this careless, I trust, with your own production org or your own sandboxes, but I'm the only one in here, and I always want to use this page layout. Let's refresh. All right, now the opportunity has a lot more fields on it relevant to CPQ. We see some fields down here with the primary quote. We'll talk about some of these things later. We still see the Bugs as the primary contact. The only thing that's changed here are the specific numbers and types of related lists that show, but Bugs is still there. And we see our chatter post that shows various information as things change on this. Here's my quote related list. And I'm going to create a new quote. One of the downsides to moving from CPQ on Classic to CPQ for Lightning is that a lot of these fields don't populate for us automatically, or a couple of key fields don't populate for us automatically, one being the opportunity, another being the account. What I'll usually do is create a Lightning action that takes care of that for me. I'm happy to just build that right now because it only takes a few minutes. And if you've never done it before, I'm happy to do a quick demo of that. Otherwise, I'll just fill it in. Thoughts?
Good to go, man.
All right, cool.
Thought
So
I'd give you a response there.
I appreciate that. I'll manually populate these. Just know that I'll pre-fill these with our quick action. So from the opportunity, I create a lightning action called new quote. I click that. Behind the scenes, I'll pre-populate opportunity and account. And then what I'll often do is I'll include a couple of key fields that I'll want to populate on the quote. The primary checkbox, the start date, the subscription term, all of those sorts of things, maybe the payment terms. You can put the rest of those on that layout of the lightning action as you see fit, depending on the needs of your business. For this, I'm going to populate opportunity and the account. I'll check the primary checkbox. Just a thing to call out really quickly, because I've seen it numerous times on projects. We have a type field here on the quote, and the type contains a handful of values. We've got quote, renewal, amendment, requote. Do not touch those fields. Those picklist values are the picklist values that you get. While you could add more if you wanted to, don't. But why? I'm glad you asked. So the reason you don't do it is because these picklist values are part of the considerations of the CPQ calculation engine. And if you mess with them, you might break something. But what if I need to track the different types of accounts or different types of quotes that I have? They're different than what's listed here. Totally fine. Do that. Make a custom type field. Put whatever values you want in that. Put this behind the scenes. Take it off the page layout. Do whatever you have to do. Don't let users mess with this. Don't you mess with the picklist values as the administrator. If you need a type field for your quotes, you want it to be different values than this, totally fine. Make a custom field. End rant. All right, I've got my quote. It's marked as primary. What does the primary checkbox do? I'm glad you asked. The primary checkbox drives a lot of functionality. For the purposes of today, the only thing I care about is that the primary quote is the quote that's used to synchronize the quote lines with the opportunity products to make sure that my quote and my opportunity stay in sync with each other. Similar to the sync functionality of the standard quotes, if you're using those today, it's similar in principle. Once again, the buttons that I actually want to use are nowhere in the page layout, so we're going to change those as well, but I'm going to do that later because that's not all that exciting to see. What I need to know is that the button that I want to add lines to my quote is called Edit Lines. I'm going to edit my quote lines. If you don't like the label Edit Lines, you can use Translation Workbench to change it to something else. Or you can change the label of the button, or you can do a couple, you can do some other stuff too, but I'm not going to bore you with that. We can talk about that on a future call. The little pop-up that just came up asked me which price book I wanted to use. In this case, the only price book I have in the system is the standard price book. That's the one I chose to use. And once that's selected, what it actually does is it updates the opportunity. Turning really quickly to show you what I mean. On the opportunity, we have a field that captures the standard price book, which is, of course, not in the page layout. It's behind the scenes. But when I'm in the quote line editor and I get the pop-up in CPQ that says to choose my price book, it updates the opportunity, which in turn updates the quote record. Price book standard. All right. Once I've set the price book for the opportunity and therefore the quote, I cannot have a mismatch between the two. And changing the price book after you've already started building a quote is a pain in the ass. And what you can do, if you're always using only a single price book, I'm doing this with a current client. We're using one price book. That's all we're using. We don't need more than one. What am I doing then? I'm using a very simple flow to set the price book on every newly created opportunity. And then that little pop-up when I get to the quote line editor screen never appears because it's already been pre-selected. It leverages the principle of as early as possible. I'm populating things as far upstream as possible so I can leverage them through the whole downstream process. All right. Now that I've got that selected, let's pop back into the quote line editor and add some products. Here I should see a number of different products. Got our GenWatt power stuff. We've got our installations. What's going on here? Why don't I see the products that I just added? I had the peanut butter jelly sandwich. I had the jellies and all this other stuff. I don't see them. Well, that's weird. I legit don't know why I don't see them right now. So this presents an opportunity to troubleshoot. Let's take a look at the products. What's the first thing I check? I need to check to ensure that the products, the price books, and the price book entries are all active. peanut butter and jelly sandwich, active. It has a price book entry. Price book entry is active. Let's verify that and view the record just to be sure. Okay, so that's active. Is my standard price book active? Standard price book is active. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. The DevOrg has multiple price books and they're both called standard. This is so dumb. Here's one of them. But if I actually look at both of them, which I can't see because apparently you don't, let's make a new list view. New list view, all price books, save. Look at that. How silly. This one's called standard. Really, this is not the standard price book. This one is the standard price book. How do I know that? Because if I add, is standard price book is set to true. It's kind of funny though, because even though the records say is standard price book as a field, if I select fields to display, I don't see is standard price book. I'm just now noticing that for the first time. Thank you, Salesforce, for the confusion. All right, so the standard price book, I know this is the true standard price book because there's a checkbox called is standard price book, and I can select this for only one price book in the system. Just like I can have as many quotes as I want, but only one primary quote, just as many opportunity contact roles as I want, but only one primary opportunity contact role. The same thing is true here. I can have as many price books as I want, though for God's sake, use as few as possible. But I can have only one standard price book. That's it. I can have only one. One reigns supreme. That's this one. So to make life easier on myself, I'm going to change the name of this one to something a little more intuitive, like not standard price book, which is still a terrible name, but I thought it was funny. So we're going with it. Now, when I go back to the quote, we see that the reason why the product that I wanted to sell did not show up on the quote is because I'm using the not standard price book. Whoops. This now gives me an opportunity to completely dovetail in a direction I didn't plan to go today and talk about the pain in the ass that it is to correct the standard price book after I've already selected one. In this case, it's not too bad. Where it gets really bad is when you've created a quote, you've added quote lines, you've synchronized with the opportunity products because now everything is using the wrong price book or the wrong currency, which in turn is going to use the wrong price book entries. And then you're backed yourself into a corner. So you want to be really careful and set the right price book as early as possible in the process, set the right currency for the user as early in the process as possible, because to unwind it is annoying as hell and you don't want to do it. So I'm going to do this the easy way and delete everything I just did because I don't want to deal with unwinding it.
I have a question real quick while you're doing that.
Yeah, what's up?
If you did, select your own price book, and you had, quote lines and products and stuff like that, just, clone with, clone the quote with related, and it's not going to be primary yet. It's not going to sync to the opportunity. But at that point, on the quote, just change it to the standard price book and delete your lines you need to.
I don't think so, because it's going to, by default, it's going to clone all the same values. I'd have to test it to be sure.
Okay, well, it's just an idea.
Yeah. Food for thought.
It might not work. I just thought about it. I don't want to hold you up there.
No, it's a good question. I'd have to dig into it. Let's go
Yeah,
back
okay.
and do the same thing again. From Bugs Bunny, I'm going to create a new opportunity. This is going to be Acme Corporation. And generally, as an admin, I'm not going to want my users to just delete opportunities. I'll either remove the button or I will completely remove the profile access to delete. I did that once at a company I worked for because people just deleted stuff And especially when you start getting your contracts and subscriptions in place and all this data starts becoming this interwoven ball of whatever, then the deleting stuff, oh no, oh, I don't want that. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, of course. Like everything, it depends. I'm going to add, while I'm here, I'm going to add the standard price book, or I'm going to add the price book lookup field to the page layouts so that I can see exactly what I have here. Price book is here. This is a standard opportunity field, but it's leveraged by CPQ. And to illustrate the point that when I have, refresh the screen so I can get my new fields. What the flow was doing that I mentioned earlier is that when this opportunity, sure, I'll allow that. When this opportunity was created, I went ahead and I selected the actual standard price book and save. Now, when I create the quote, I don't need that standard price book because it's already been selected, and any quote created from the opportunity will inherit the same. As I scroll down, it's not populated yet, but it will be soon. Here's my opportunity. Here's my account and primary. The special note, part of the reason I create that lightning action to pre-populate the opportunity in the account is for downstream purposes, because when I go to create an order and a contract after that, if my quote lacks an opportunity or an account, the system goes, well, I don't know what deal this is for. I don't know what account this is for. I'm not going to create a contract or subscriptions. Despite the fact that you've tried to check a primary checkbox or that you've checked the contracted or the ordered checkbox on the quote, it won't matter because I don't know where this data is supposed to go. That's the question that we're answering here. Similarly, small detail, make sure that you enable profile access on the order for the opportunity field, or you'll run into issues as well. Now that we have the quote, I will take a look down here. Oh, look at that. The price book has now been populated, which now means that when I click Edit Lines, the pop-up that we saw the first time will not appear because I have already selected my price book. And we're going to do that with a flow on the opportunity. Now I see my various ingredients, crunchy, creamy peanut butter, etc. But I don't want to see all of these products. One of the things I like to do when I'm configuring in CPQ is have multiple tabs open at the same time. That way I can start to configure things as I have them. I don't want any of these diesel things to show, but I also can't deactivate them from here. Let's go ahead and add my active checkbox, save. Now let's get rid of these. I'm going to check those. Update 9. And then we're going to do these ones. And these ones. Update 17. Apply. Save. Does that look good? I think that's all of them. Great. Now with my filter, let's update the filter to show only active is true. Done. Save. Now we've got our peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We've got all of our different ingredients. We've cleaned up the opportunity page layout. We've set our price book. We've talked a little bit about how much of a pain in the ass it is if you pick the wrong price book, how to reverse it. So you just delete the stuff and start again. And with that, we're at time and I have another call to jump to. So thanks for joining me on this call. Feel free to send me an email with questions that you have. I'll start adding this stuff to the backlog and then we'll run this like a project each week and go from here. Until then, have a great week.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
See you.
Bye.
See you, John. Bye. Thanks.